Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And today we're going to be talking about audio, but slightly differently. One is about creating a book using your podcast, but then also creating an audio book, which to me is like super connected. And I love that idea. I listen to audiobooks. I don't know if you do. So I have a ghostwriter, publisher, copywriter extraordinaire, Lynn Smargis on the show. So super excited to chat with you today.
Hey, Lindsay, I'm really excited to chat with you too because I love talking about this topic. It gets me all fired up.
And I feel like like years ago, there was a trend where a lot of people were creating books in their podcasts, and then it dropped off again. But then people are starting to do it again. It's like there's always trends, right?
hmm
Um, but to me, it's like people think it's super easy. Oh, we'll just grab these episodes, grab the transcripts, slap it together, and away it goes. And I'm like, that slightly makes me cringe, and I'm sure it makes you cringe. Um, and so let's start with like, when is the right time, or do you have the right podcast to be able to convert it to a book?
Yeah, that is a fabulous question. I love that you asked that because while there is no like perfect time, and I know people always like, oh, what's the perfect time to do this? It's like start now, right? But in general, what I tell people, because I've been in the podcast industry for almost 8 years now, so I know the ins and outs of podcasting, how hard it is to make one. I've had four of my own personal podcasts, so five, I think, at this point. Anyway, that I produce. So I lose track after a while. I'm a serial podcaster. And anyway, so what you want to do is make sure you have a good cadence down with your podcast and you feel comfortable with it. And that typically happens around 50 episodes. So I always recommend, there's no real perfect time, but I say don't do it when you first start your podcast because
Yes.
you're overloading your plate, right? Like you don't like, and I, as a creator, like that's easy for me to do. And I'm sure that's easy for a lot of people listening here to do because we get so passionate and excited about our work. We're like, yeah, I want to write a book, right? So, but I say wait until you get a good cadence down. You're comfortable with it. You know, you can put out an episode every week because podcasting, as we know, is a lot of work. And then once you get comfortable with it and you have some content under your belt, then think about, okay, now I can take this and write a book with it. And honestly, almost any podcast content can be turned into a book.
Hmm,
You just have to know how to do it so that it's marketable, right? Like you can
right.
take almost any topic and niche it down to make it marketable. It does have to be niche. Like you can't say, I'm going to write a book about travel or I'm going to write a book about fitness, right? That's way too general. Like you could write a book about, I'm going to write a fitness book for women over 50 who are looking to build their strength by increasing their muscle mass. That's very specific.
I love that. Specificity is so important, even like as a podcaster creating content, even as someone that guests on podcast, the topics that you choose. So absolutely with a book, because you want to target a specific group of people,
Yes.
not just trying to like attract what do they say? Like when you try to attract everyone, you actually attract no one.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because, like, going into it, right, in a business, you're like, oh, I want to get my message to everybody, which when you think about it on the surface makes sense. But then, like, if you think about when you look at things, right, like, or when I look at things, and if I just saw, like, oh, this is a travel book, I'd be like, right. But if I saw this is a travel book that shows you how to backpack across Italy, and I'm planning on backpacking across Italy, I'm like, oh, I want that book.
Yeah, absolutely. It invokes interest for sure. So to me, I'm like, I automatically think that solo episodes for podcasters, like there's rich content in there. Not that not rich content in interviews, but I find interview podcasts there's so many varied topics, different personalities. Like, can you turn an interview style podcast into a book? Am I just a little twisted in my thinking?
No, no. Actually, I get really creative with how to do things. You
Hmm.
can take interview style podcasts and turn it into a book. However, here's where the CYA thing comes in because I'm all about CYA and making sure that you have all the boxes checked off before you put any interview podcast in your book. Make sure you have a legal disclaimer sent to that person that they've agreed to. So when I have people on my podcast, I have a podcast interview guest form that says I can use any of the content in any media form moving forward that is on that interview. So that automatically covers me like as soon as I interview the guest, right?
Mm.
So if you don't have that guest interview form set up, definitely do that. Or even just send them an email saying, hey, I'm writing a book. I would like your permission to use your interview in the podcast and possibly mention your name. Like, is that okay? Do I have your legal permission to do that? And get it in writing. Don't call them, don't text them, get it in an
Oh.
email, because that way, if you publish your book and they're like, oh, I never gave you permission, you can pull that email right up.
Ooh. Yeah, doing that legwork ahead of time can save
Mm-hmm.
you a ton of headache.
Right.
And
Because the
it's funny
last
because
thing you need is a lawyer calling you
yes,
up.
no, thank you.
No.
Um,
Life is hard enough as it is. We don't need extra lawyers in our lives.
no. So when you are putting together a book, like me, for instance, I've obviously done a bunch of solo episodes. I have a ton of interviews. But it's like I'm covering things from like hosting, producing, guesting. Like there have been a lot of different topics. Do you really have to like niche it down, pick one theme, and then pull those episodes in? Or are there multiple strategies that you can like how you format it?
Right. So, what a lot of people think is like, oh, I have podcast content. I can just turn it into a book. Well, yes and no. So, yes, you have podcast content. Yes, you can use that in your book. However, you don't just want to take your content and like copy and paste it into a book. That's what's known I mean, blog writing is still big, but when blog writing blew up, that's what's known as a blog book. And no one likes to read that because it doesn't flow correctly and it doesn't sound good because you're kind of just jumping from one topic to another. So what you need to do is you need to be strategic and backward design it. And what backward design is, if you don't know, is you start with your goal in mind. So your goal is you want to write and publish a book. And so what, like, obviously, you want to publish a book. So the next step I always tell people when I'm in a consult with them is you want to go on Amazon and see who else is writing books in that niche topic or in the
Mm,
topic in general. And you want to pick something that's just a little more niche that you have in your content, right? So say you're in finance, but you're specifically in finance for multifamily, like buildings and apartments, and you invest in that. And you see all these finance books and other people are doing like the same thing, like multifamily investing, but you do multifamily investing for startups or for starters or for beginners who are just getting into it. Or you do multi-family investing for people who have been doing it for 10 years and this is like the next level for them, right?
mm,
So go on Amazon and figure out what it is that you can publish as a book that nobody has out yet, that's a little more niche or nuanced than the ones that are out there right now, that then you build your outline, right? So your topic is this, and then you make your outline to support your topic. And then you can look at your content and say, okay, what episodes do I have that I can use for my book? You don't want to just shove stuff in there just to make it fit. That's going to be horrible and it's going to not read well. And the other thing you can do too that I've done with clients who have podcasts is we've made their book outline and then we say, okay, you have podcast episodes for chapters 3, 5, 7, and 11. We need content for these other chapters. So then they design their podcast episodes to fill those chapters.
ooh,
Yes. And so you're killing two birds with one stone. So instead of doing
yes.
double the work, you're actually crafting your podcast to build your book.
Ooh, I like that.
I am
Because
all about repurposing as much as possible.
yes. Right? Yeah. And that's such an easier way of creating the book by creating that outline. And then you know what podcast episodes to do. And I find when you're talking about your craft or whatever it is and your stories come out, it feels more natural. But when you're like typing on the computer, you're like in self edit mode and you're
Mhm.
like painstaking every little word. And it can just take forever.
Yeah. And so since I'm a professional writer and editor, like it's easy for me to go through someone else's work and critique it because I'm on the outside, right? But like when I'm working on my own stuff, like I'm doing two collaborative book writing projects with like one with a group of people and one separate, I'm doing my first fiction book with a professional editor as well. And so like I sat down last night and I wrote 16 pages of the fiction book, but I'm like going through it and redoing it because it's my own work. So we're always more critical of our own work. So yeah. So
Yes.
you definitely need to have a plan and always, like I always say, like get professional help at some point, especially if it's a book editor, because you don't want to just publish a book without having it professionally edited. Like I've read books that Lindsay, I had to put down because I couldn't read them anymore because it was
Oh,
just so badly written. Yeah. Because people say like, oh, I'm a good writer. And they might be an okay writer, but it doesn't look professional as a published book.
yeah, it's not book worthy.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So it might be good for blogs. It might be good for like, your podcast show notes or whatever, but like books are really a whole nother level. And that's what people need to really understand when they're moving from doing podcasting and blogging into like the publishing world, is that you don't want to hand somebody that book and then they completely lose credibility for you. So I'll give you a really
100%.
quick example. I was at an international conference earlier this year, and the keynote speaker got up on stage and they had a book up on, they do the slide presentation, and at the end they're like, oh, get my book. I'm like, oh, cool, the speaker was awesome, I'm going to get her book. So I got the book, and literally on the first page I see 5 formatting errors and like 10 grammar mistakes.
Ooh.
And I'm trying to read through this book, and like every chapter she repeats the same line 2 or 3 times. And I was literally lost like all credibility for the speaker, because I'm like,
Yeah.
if you say you're professional and you say you can make people all this money, then why didn't you spend some money and invest in the professionalism of your book?
Yes, good point. And so to say that, obviously, it's more than taking the transcripts from those episodes and tidying it up.
Yes.
So, and even taking a transcript and turning it into a blog, I'm assuming would be much different than turning it into a book chapter. What
Yes.
are some of the, what's the word? What are some of the like the strategies or thought patterns or viewpoint that we should have going in?
Oh, so like as far as like the viewpoint going into like from taking your content to a podcast and putting it into a book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things is you can't think like a digital online content creator, because that's you. I mean, you can, but like that's different. So like when I create content for digital, and I'm on like Substack and YouTube and a whole bunch of places, I typically what I do is I take a big article and I break it down for like LinkedIn, and I break whatever, right? But that's different. That's like little blurbs and pieces. So and you can't take your social media post and make them into a book. I had a client try to do that, and I kept telling her
Oh,
it doesn't work. Yeah, these are like
no, I
blurbs.
can't
You can't
even
take.
fathom that.
Right. I know, because they're too short, right? They're just little blurbs. You can take your book and make social media content out of that, but you can't do it in reverse. And so when you're going into writing a book and you're a digital creator, one of the things you have to have a a mindset shift on to be successful when you're publishing your book is think about, this is my introductory card to somebody who I have no idea who it is. Now with a podcast, it's different, right? Because they hear your voice, it's
Mhm.
conversational. But when you're writing in a book, it's part writing, part conversation, part storytelling, and then part informational. So it's a lot different than just putting out a podcast or just writing show notes, because show notes are summaries. They're really easy to write. I've written
Yeah.
show notes, I've written books, I've written blogs, I've written pretty much everything. So it's a lot different in the way you write it. So you have to approach it differently. And you have to approach this from the perspective of, if you are going to compete against other books in your genre, and you are going to, you need to make sure that your book is in tip top shape. Because if someone buys someone else's book who's been professionally edited and or ghostwritten, it's going to look a lot different than your book that
Mhm.
you just wrote like from a blog.
Yeah,
And you want to keep that
100%.
in mind and consideration, because especially if you're using that book for a lead gen.
Yeah. And if you are using episodes where you have guests, like you're impacting their reputation as
Yes.
well because they're in it. So do we have to create stories for each chapters and try to weave those in? Is that really important?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, because every one of my clients asked that same question. I love it. So what I tell people with their book is I say, if you have a story that lends to educating the person or that lends to really enriching that chapter, then put it in. But don't force a story because you think you have to have one in every chapter. That's like word count, right? Like that's another question I get a lot. Like, how many
Mm,
words should my book be? And I just did a Substack live on that. And then what I tell people is, your book needs to be enough words where it gives value and information and educates your reader. If it's a nonfiction book, right? Like we're using it for business, but you don't want to like you want to put stories in there, but you don't want fluff. No one likes to read fluff. Like, Lindsay, when's the last time you read something and it was fluffy and you really loved it?
No, I skim past it.
Right, exactly. And that's what people are going to do to your thing. And the other thing people do a lot of in book publishing is they use way too many bullet points. And just like a PowerPoint
Mm,
slide, right? You glaze out, you don't want to put a
right.
ton of bullet points in your book either. So you have to just really figure out like if I were to read this book, would this be a book that I would read that's an easy read?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, great points. Before our time is up, though, I do want to dive into the audiobook part because I just find this super interesting. And it's like, A, there's so much to unpack here. Let me start. I have too many questions for you, Lynn. Let me start with, should you create an audiobook when you have a book? Like, is it a must have or is it a nice to have?
So you actually don't have to create an audiobook. One of the things I did, so what I tell people is if you're going to create, okay, so let me back up. There's four different types of books. You can create an ebook, a paperback, a hardcover, or an audiobook, right? And then there's all sorts of specialty things, but those are the four basic things you can find on Amazon. What I always tell people, if you're going to create one, do an ebook because they sell more than any other type of book.
Oh,
Well, audiobooks are actually creeping up and passing them right now. But typically, if you're going to do one book, do an ebook. And what the other reason I tell people to just do an ebook first is because you want to get your feet wet in publish that before you start jumping into bigger things like audiobooks. Because one of the things I did, my first book I published was The Guide to Traveling Gluten Free. And so I published that as a paperback and an ebook. And then I always wanted to do an audiobook, but I didn't have the time or funds to do it back then. And when I first published it, there wasn't an AI version to read it. However, Amazon just recently came out with you can make a free audiobook with their AI. So I a test run because my travel gluten free podcast and my book that goes along with it is more of like a hobby thing that I do and not like directly related to my publishing
mhm.
business. Um, I was like, let me try it out on my guide to traveling gluten free. So I made the audiobook on with the Amazon freebie audiobook service. You get to pick out like the voice and all that stuff, and they have these voices to choose from. And so I did that. But then what I found out was that when it was published on Amazon, and you make it in like literally 10 minutes, you have an Amazon ISBN. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with publishing, I'll give you a quick explanation 411. You can have an Amazon ISBN, or you can buy your own ISBNs from a place called myidentifiers.com, which is Bowker's Publishing. So Bowker's Publishing, you buy a pack of 10 for like $300, and you need one ISBN for each book format. So one for your ebook, one for your audiobook, one for your hardcover, one for your paperback, right? So if you're publishing all this. So anyway, but with an Amazon ISBN, they give it to you for quote unquote free. But here's the catch. If you have your book, any format on an Amazon ISBN, you cannot sell it anywhere else other than Amazon platform. So now I can't take that audiobook and sell it on my website. I can't take that audiobook and just like give it to my friends because it's not my audiobook. Amazon technically owns the rights to where I can sell it because it's an
Ooh,
Amazon ISBN. So I always recommend to my clients never get the Amazon. And I didn't know that before I did it. And since it was a hobby thing, it wasn't a big deal. It's like,
yeah.
okay, whatever. But what I always recommend to my clients is buy that 10 pack for $300 because you want to make sure, because if you have a paperback and you're a speaker and you want to buy books, if you have an Amazon ISBN, you can't buy your own book from Amazon and sell it at your speaking engagement if you have an Amazon ISBN. So you have your own ISBN. That way you can buy your book, you can sell it on your website, you can sell it at your speaking engagements, wherever you're going.
Wow. That has probably just saved people so much time and money.
That's the thing a
That's
lot of people
crazy.
don't
Aren't they
know.
smart though?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll give you free ISBNs. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
spend $300. No, I would rather spend $300 and have the own rights to distribute my
Yes.
stuff wherever.
100%. Because then you can include it in programs that you have. Like you
Mm-hmm.
just have so much more flexibility.
Yeah. And you
Um,
definitely don't want to cross that line because if Amazon finds out, you will literally never be able to publish on Amazon
I
again.
know. You don't want to be blacklisted.
No.
Now, what are some tips or some mistakes for those that have created audiobooks?
Yeah. So one of the things is people think, oh, I can just get on my mic and create an audiobook, which is not true. I actually did a great episode on my podcast, Publishing for Professionals. It's the one with Trenton Bennett, and I believe it's like episode 10. And he's a voiceover artist who actually did the voiceover for my book, Sensible Senior Solutions, that I published earlier this year. And we went on to talk about all sorts of things. But one of the things people don't know is that on Amazon. So when you go through I think it's ACX, that's the audiobook
Yeah.
publishing platform that Amazon owns. So when you go through that, you have to have a sound level, a bass floor basically. And I'm not an audio engineer. So I'm just explaining this from my general knowledge of 60 decibels, which means you can't have hardly any background noise, like, or zero. And I'm not sure exactly what level that is, but like an audio engineer or an audiobook narrator who does that for a living would know. So that's why I hired Trenton, because I'm like, I don't have a soundproof room. And if you upload it and it's not correct, they will not let you publish your book.
And the
So
amount of like hours you would have spent
yep,
reading that.
yep. So that's why I tell people, if you're going to do that, do it in make a soundproof room and do it in a soundproof room with a dynamic mic. Don't do it with a condenser mic like a Blue Yeti, because it's never going to pass the Amazon test. So that's
No.
one thing. The other thing is the ISBN thing, which we already covered.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, just generally with book publishing, is that we talked about the niche topic going on Amazon, is that you want to just really be clear why you're publishing your book. So like, a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to make $1 million with a book. I'm like, okay, to be honest, unless you're an A-lister, you're probably not. That doesn't mean you're not going to, right? But you have to do a heck of a lot of marketing of your book to make a lot of money from it. And you can do that. That is possible. Like, people do it all the time. But a lot of my clients just want to use their book for a lead magnet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they get the client like, oh, can I mail you a copy of my book or whatever? They hand it out to them. And that showed, like, people are really impressed when they meet an author. It's almost like meeting a movie star. Like, when I tell people, like, yeah, I wrote and published this book, like, oh my gosh, you wrote this? Like, they're talking to the author. So
Yeah,
like, it
yeah.
makes you feel like really cool inside too. You're like, yeah, I'm so cool because I published this book. But
Yeah.
right. But more important than that, it really up levels you in the eyes of others. And that's really the main purpose of publishing your book, is because it really does separate you, because 80% of people think about publishing a book. Out of those 80%, 20% of those people will write their book. Out of that 20%, only 5% will actually publish their book. So it puts you in like the top 2% of people. That's okay. You can always change. One of my most recent clients is 80 and he just published his memoir.
Wow.
You're never too old to publish a book.
True. And what an accomplishment. Like, really,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, like, to feel like you've put your thoughts and your knowledge and your experience out into the world, that can then, it's out there indefinitely, like, it's forever.
Yeah. And if you are a big frisbee disc or disc golf player, his name is Tom Schott, and it's called Dreams Take Flight. So look it up on Amazon. He literally is responsible for starting world event disc golf games in California in the 70s. Super cool story.
Wow.
And not
That's
just
neat.
because I wrote it. It's a really cool story. And he had like literally all the posters from the games, like old photos and everything. So it's like walking through a time capsule. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. That's so cool. What great information. And I think, again, I don't want people just, oh, yep, I can do it, tick it off a box, and then kind of like dive in, not understanding the strategy that's involved, some of the mistakes that you can make without, again, doing the research and understanding it. Now, you obviously ghostwrite, and so you help people publish as well, that part of it?
Yeah. So what makes my ghostwriting service unique is that I do ghostwriting and book coaching at the same time. So every month we get together once a month and we meet, and then I answer any of the writing and publishing questions for my clients. And also too, I'm part counselor, Lindsay, because people always ask me, is this good enough? Is anybody going to read it? I'm like, yeah, someone's going to, like, I wouldn't have taken on your project if I thought no one was ever
Yeah.
going to read this. So anyway, so I do, like, I'm part counselor, I'm part like anti-imposter syndrome, like, coach.
Yeah.
And then I'm part ghostwriter and part book coach. So I help them with publishing. I literally, like, walk people through step by step so they can have a professionally published, self-published book without having the trouble of trying to get a traditional or hybrid publisher to sign them on. And then there's all that could be a whole separate podcast episodes, all the issues you can have with publishers.
Yes. I can well imagine.
Yeah. I always recommend people, even if you do want to work with a publisher eventually, self publish your first book because the experience you have of walking through it will give you
Mm,
a lot of knowledge so that if a publisher is trying to like pull a fast one over on you, you'll know the difference.
right. That's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah, you would learn so much going through that experience for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
having someone to like step you through it and like answer the questions and figure it out and because you want to do it the right way. It's a lot of work, blood, sweat and tears and hours
Yes.
that go into a book, so you want to do it right.
Yeah. And you want it to be like a great representation of who you are and who you serve and what you do.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I know you've got an event coming up.
Yes.
I have never seen a free event for helping people write a book like ever. It's usually like, a definitely a paid retreat or workshop. So I would love for people to hear about it.
Yeah, thank you for letting me share this on your show. So I came up with the idea of this retreat because one of the things I see a lot of people stumble on is just getting started. Like I just
Hmm.
don't know where to start. Like I've got all this great content and I don't know how to focus it or where to start. So I thought, well, if I provide a virtual writing retreat for one day, make it really easy for busy professionals. It's on September 19th. It's a Friday and I live on the Pacific Coast, so it starts at 8. I can't start it at 5 in the morning because I'm just not
No.
that awake. So it's from 8 to 3 on September 19th. And it's some book writing blocks, but then we're also doing a networking lunch so you can meet other professionals on Zoom. And then we're also doing a Q&A session in the afternoon. So once you start writing your book, and I'll give you some tips on writing before our first writing block, you can ask me any questions you have about writing and publishing your book at the retreat, at the virtual writing retreat. So you don't have to pay for airfare or hotel or have jet lag. You can just hop on your computer, have like a great productive day working and getting advice from a professional ghostwriter, obviously me. And then like I can help you with like, building your book, giving you some direction. Obviously, it's not like a super personalized deep dive, but it's just to give you a direction on like here's where to start,
Totally.
because that's where almost everybody gets stuck, is just where to start. So that's why I'm offering this
Yeah.
virtual writing retreat. It's for professionals who are writing their nonfiction book to make themselves stand out in their vertical.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. What
Yeah.
is the URL, or should I just put it in the show notes?
Yeah, so there is a specific sign up form that I'm going to give Lindsay to put in the show notes.
Okay,
But if
great.
you want to just jump on my website to find it, it's www.writeforyou. It's WRITEFORYOU.me. And then just click on the events page and they'll have the sign up form there as well. In addition to I'll give the link for
Yeah.
Lindsay to put in the show notes.
Perfect. That is awesome. What a great day that would be. Just even sometimes just to get that clarity and like creating an outline or just the concept or just to get over that roadblock and then, you're off
Yeah,
to the races.
because being confident in writing your book is a path to finishing it. Like not being confident in your book, I have literally had people pay me to write their entire book and they never publish it because they're scared no one's going to read it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So having that confidence, that's one of the things I build with my book
Yeah,
coaching, is giving my clients confidence, being like, your book is good. It's gonna do well. It's awesome. Like you're gonna be fine. So that's part of my whole ghostwriting coaching program.
yeah. Goodness. I can't fathom not putting it out there once all the work is done.
Right.
Goodness. That's like recording 50 like podcast episodes and then not going live.
And I heard of someone who did that too. She made 47 episodes, and it's one of my friends who owns a podcast production company. And he said she didn't publish it because she felt like it wasn't right yet.
What?
I
That's
know.
nuts.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like your work, right? That's not who your
Yeah.
work is for. Your work is for the people who are attracted to your work, even if you make mistakes, because we're all human. No one
Yeah.
who is making any type of content isn't human, and humans are not perfect.
Agreed. And it's like you can't wait until things are perfect. You
Right.
just like,
Because you don't know what to
progress over
change.
perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to change if you don't put anything out there to start out with to figure out
Hmm.
what works and what doesn't. So yeah, just be messy, put it out there, be
Yeah.
creative, and if and you will attract the right people to your to
Yeah.
your to your platform.
Agreed. Thank you so much. You're so full of energy, so much full of like amazing tips.
Oh, thank
And
you. I love to share. I used to be a teacher, so I love to educate people.
oh, did
It's in
you?
my blood.
That's so cool. That is awesome. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom with my audience.
Well, thank you, Lindsay, for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to your guests.
Perfect. So have a great rest of your week, folks, and we'll see you again on the next episode of the Leverage Your Podcast Show. Take care.